This is the Throstle Club with Norman Bartlam and Bob Downing.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Throstle Club. It's the programme which looks back on the long and illustrious history of West Bromwich Albion, and we speak to former players and supporters about their memories of our marvellous club, with a particular emphasis on this month in history. And of course it's November now, 2024. Now sitting alongside me as usual is a man whose form rate is always excellent, the former Sports Argus man Bob Downing.
Hello Norman.
Good to see you, Bob. And sitting next to you, or opposite indeed, is Black Country's very own Billy Spakeman. And you'll be chipping in, no doubt, with your own comments. And are you still twiddling your knobs in the corner?
I'm always twiddling my knobs. That's what they're there for.
You're claiming to keep us on air anyway. Now, our special studio guest today is a long-serving fan of West Bromwich Albion. But he not only was a fan, Billy, but he was also a director of the club.
Certainly.
It most certainly is. And if that's not good enough, he was even a schoolboy neighbour of your good self.
He was, yes.
So what can be better than that? So welcome to Mike O'Leary.
Yay.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Well, so there we go. So we've got loads to talk about on this edition of the Throstle Club. And once again, it's the magnificent choir from the Bummy Road launching us into this edition of the Throstle Club. Our special guest then is Mike O'Leary. So Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself then.
Well, I think I started watching football at the Hawthorns in about 1963, and I think the first match I ever went to was at home to Leicester City, but I could be wrong about that. But been watching since all those years ago. Had a season ticket for a very long time, from about 1971 right through till 2004. But always been a fan,
Okay, we'll be finding out a little bit more about your dealings, because you ended up actually working, shall we say, for West Brom, didn't you? So just briefly then, what did you do?
Well, I was CEO, but it was a bit of a strange situation, because I wasn't employed by the club. I did it for nothing, did it for love. But yeah, I had a couple of years doing that job.
For the love of working with Jeremy Peace, what could be better?
Absolutely.
We'll find out more about that later. And of course, many people will know the name Mike O'Leary in the football world. More recently, as chairman of Ipswich Town, and got them promoted. And we'll be talking about that, no doubt, later in the programme. I'm sure you want to mention that.
Three very happy years at Portman Road, and I retired just a few months ago. And I should add that Billy Spakeman and I were at school together, but he's now 1 year ahead of me because he's had his birthday this year. And
Actually, I haven't yet.
Oh, it must be close.
It's close.
Mine hasn't come yet. Mine's in another 4 or 6 weeks, but he's just ahead of me.
The big celebrations to come then? No doubt.
Not at our age, Mike, is it? No.
Have a job to remember.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Days.
My daughter usually tells me, Dad, it's your birthday today.
Right, now somebody can always remember what he's talking about. Is Bob?
Yeah.
You've never forgotten anything, have you? What's your name again? Oh, Bob.
Yeah.
So, in the news at the moment then, how do you reckon the Albion are doing? 1-1 was our last game at Luton at the weekend.
I think the problem probably was at the start of the season when we had such a brilliant start and everybody was thinking, oh, it's easy, this is. And that championship ain't easy. It's not easy. You look at some of the results that are coming through, even on Saturday. I mean, look at what Sheffield Wednesday did to us. And they got walloped on Saturday. Look how Cardiff started. Couldn't buy a point, and now they're on this fantastic unbeaten run and come back. What did they beat Norwich 2-1? Was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Both goals scored in injury time, or added time they call it now. It's going to be hard. Okay, we've got a lot of injuries at the moment. Certainly central defence. I like the idea of the lad moving from left back to centre half. I think that's his position. I don't think he was good at left back. I think he was,
This is Hegham.
Hegham, yeah. there was some times when you thought, on that left side they might have been getting in each other's way, whether it was, Carlem Grant or whether it was Mikey Johnson. I still wonder about some of the substitutions, but that's not my job. That's Carlos's job. He knows it more than I do. He sees them every day of the week. He works with them. So you have to trust in his judgment. He's the one that's picking the team. He's the one that's seeing them every day. He's the one that's giving the tactics. So, but I think it's going to be hard.
Yeah, are you a bit worried about? There's a bit of a rut now because it's 7 games without a win, or beat 5 draws.
Yeah, that obviously is a concern. But the one thing that the supporters have got to remember is that we keep saying it and saying it and saying it. This is a marathon. It ain't a sprint. Every club in that championship will go through a run that we're going through at the moment. You can't say for definite, they're a good home side or they're a good away side, because some of them are getting beat at home, some are getting beaten away. Okay, we've had 5 draws, but you look at the table, and because of that Cardiff win, we're still in the top 6. Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, if you can go through a run like we're going through at the moment and still remain in that top 6, 7 or whatever it is, and okay, we might be losing a bit of touch at the moment, but if you can stay in that group, then you've got to be optimistic.
Yeah, excellent. That's a good positive thing, isn't it? Another positive thing, of course, is Major, or Major as some people call him. He's still scoring goals. A magnificent Johan Cruyff-style backheel for the goal, wasn't it, against Luton? Did you see it, Mike?
I did.
Yeah, so you must have been impressed.
I think West Brom are a top 6 side. I'll be shocked if they're not in the top 6. At the beginning of the season, I thought they'd got a very good chance of knocking on the door to be top 2. And if I think back to last year when I was attending a lot of championship games, I think they were one of the best 2 sides I saw last year. Leeds were the best side I saw. They were very strong. And even they went through a bad run, as we've just talked about, and it cost them. They ended up in the playoffs and not getting up automatically. But if you looked at the strength of the Baggies midfield in particular, they dominated games and they were very, very good. So listen, they'll come through this run. They just need something to spark them, and they'll go on a run. And I'll be shocked if they don't get there or thereabouts.
Mm-hmm. Talking of sparks, Cole came on. He's not ignited the fire of Corbyn, has he, so far? But he did well when he came on.
I thought he did. I mean,
did he have that overhead kick, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he had that overhead kick. Unfortunately, went straight down the goalkeeper's throat. But, I mean, when you do that sort of thing, I mean, he went in the one place, it didn't got to go straight at the goalkeeper. It got anywhere else, it was a goal. And that's the thing with the overhead kick. You never know which way they're going to go. But, I don't know about Mike or anybody else. I can't see when you make a substitution on 88 minutes what difference that's going to make. It's not going to make any difference at all. Not to me. I'm okay, you might get the lucky strike, but no, it's a difficult one.
But overall, you're still positive.
Yeah. As positive as you can be. I mean, you reflect on what happened on Friday night at Luton. And obviously some of the supporters are thinking, well, hang on a bit, Luton couldn't buy a point at the start of the season and they're in the relegation area. We should be beating teams like that. No, you won't, because they're fighting for their lives. They ain't going to roll over and play dead just to make you look good.
Anybody can beat anybody in the league for sure. But the strength of the squad will definitely have a bearing on it before the season's over.
Of course, we've got Dykey to come back.
Yeah.
So, looking positive then overall, I think. Anyway, let's move on and talk about some things that it's meant to be a nostalgia programme after all this, isn't it? So let's think about some things that have happened in this particular month in history. Now, cast your mind back, if you will, to November 1904.
Oh, yeah, I remember it well.
Why is he looking at you, bud?
120 years ago, there was a player called Ted Pheasant who made his debut for the Albion. He was known as Cock Pheasant. So as they were in those days.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if the Argus was around then? With some of the headlines would have had about not so much about the pheasants. I'm thinking of in particular. Just like we did in more recent days with Paul Raven. Raven swoops in. Or Raven wings it. Raven flies in.
Had a journalist dream.
Excellent. Brilliant. Now, 70 years ago, more up to date, November 1954, Alex Jackson making his debut. Remember?
Yeah,
you
saw
must
him
have
play.
Seen him. Go on then, tell us about him, Mike.
Oh gosh, I listen. I must have been 7 or 8 years old when I saw him play, and I'm 72 nearly now. So don't expect detail. But he was a star man, and he was a popular player. And I certainly remember him being picked in the first team when I was a young kid. But that's a long time ago.
People liked him, of course, because he was a local lad, isn't he? He's a Tiptonian.
Well, a lot of them were in those days.
Course, yeah.
It's later on that it started to become a more general British team, and now, of course, it's an international team.
Yeah.
The whole world has changed.
There's a smashing book called When Footballers Were Skint, and they mention Alex Jackson, and when he was picked for the Albion first team, they played in Blackpool, and that was the first time he'd ever left Tipton.
Oh, gosh.
He'd never seen Blackpool.
Yeah.
You know, he'd never seen the Blackpool Tower until he got playing for the Albion. The one thing I remember when they used to play on a Wednesday afternoon, and my dad used to take me out of school to go and watch them, and that's when the crowds were about 35,000, 40,000 on a Wednesday afternoon, because Wednesday afternoon was when West Bromwich was half-day closing.
Yes, that's right.
So everybody was there, and Albion were playing Blackpool, and one of the biggest cheers of the afternoon was when Alex Jackson dribbled past Stanley Matthews.
Oh wow! Yeah, fantastic. Yep. Now, good mate of mine, Paul Roberts, has alerted me to the fact that his brother's pub, it's the Rising Sun in Tipton, which was Alex Jackson's local, and they've just set up a special memorial corner for Alex Jackson with lots of photographs in it.
Oh, well.
I haven't been to see. I've been to the pub many a time, but not since they've set that corner up. I've seen pictures of it. It looks really impressive. So if you are in the Tipton area, it's worth going down to the Rising Sun just to have a look at that, I think.
So tell me, was it Alex or was it Alec?
Well, we should say Alec with a C.
I remember him as Alec.
Alec.
Yeah, it's laziest to say Alex, which was
Little-
just said apparently. Yeah, Alec Jackson.
Just a little story about Alex Jackson. At that time, you know, when you were off school, you know, half term or whatever, the one thing you do is, I would get on my bike, go up to the Hawthorns to get autographs. So I went up this one morning, and I thought I'll get there early when the players are arriving. So I got to the Hawthorns, and I'm waiting outside, and it was very quiet, and there was nobody about, and I thought there's something going wrong here. Anyway, just on that, a car pulled up, and Alex Jackson got out. And I'd got a couple of, you know, they were all newspapers, weren't they? Newspaper cuttings and pictures. And he signed a couple of them and he went in. And then I was still waiting there when he came out. And he said, we're not training here today. I said, no. And he said, no. He said, we go to Spring Road now. He said, do you know where that is? And I said, no. He said, well, go on, jump in the car. He said, I'll take you. And I said, no, it's all right. I said, of course, I got my bike. And he said, okay then. He said, well, what you do? And he gave me the perfect directions. And then he went off in his car. I pedalled off on my bike, found eventually Spring Road. And as they came out, or they were going back in after training, you know, because it took me a bit of time on my bike, he came over to me and he come to the fence and said, oh, you found it all right. And that was what it was like.
Well, I can tell you a story a bit different about autographs. When I was about 6 or 7, I remember my father saying to me, you're going to have to pick a team to support. Who's it going to be? And I said, well, I don't know. Who is there? And he said, well, there's Wolverhampton Wanderers and there's West Bromwich Albion. And he went through all the Midlands teams. And he said, you probably should support the Wolves because back then they were winning things. And within 2 days of that happening, I happened to be at New Street Station with my mother. We'd been into Birmingham for something. And the Wolves team turned up to catch a train to Newcastle to go to an away match. And I saw Ron Flowers on the platform. And I wandered up to ask him for his autograph. And he walked straight past as though I wasn't there. And I thought, well, blow you. I'm not going to support your team if you're going to do that.
Wow.
And the next day, I told David Baker, who's a friend of mine, that this had happened. And David said, well, that would never happen at the Albion. He said, the players there are much friendlier than that, and it's a nice club. You should come to the Albion with me. And that's what happened.
How about that?
Well, it's a blooming good job you didn't get on well with Flowers then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great reason for supporting the Albion, that is, isn't it? Brilliant.
Ron
Excellent.
Flowers gave me my first pair of proper boots, you know, when I was I was on schoolboy forms at the Wolves.
Did you ask him for his autograph?
No.
Did he ask for yours more than
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, if you're on schoolboy forms, and I don't know, I can't remember who the trainer was who used to take the babs like when we went, and he said, "Oh, you need them boots replacing, lad." And he says, "Here, take this ticket and go up to," I forgot, it was the same street, Lichfield Street, I think his shop was, and he says, "Go in and just tell them this, and you can pick a pair of boots." So I went in, having a look round, and it was Ron Flowers. I didn't know then because I was a kid. And he says, "Have a look round." And anyway, I saw these pair of Puma Eusebio boots with his autograph on. And I said, "How much am they?" And he went, "Nothing, you just give me the ticket and that." So took them home, and my dad went, "Barmy, where have you had these lovely boots from?" And of course, I had to wind this story out, and he phoned the scout to make sure it was true. He thought I'd naffed them from somewhere.
So did that mean you stopped wearing your Stanley Matthews boots after
I
that?
did. Orange toe caps, yellow laces.
I remember.
Yeah, Stanley Matthews boots. Out the Grattan's catalogue. There's a story there to tell you. You ain't got long enough for that one. Yeah, they were great.
Excellent. Right, let's move on. 60 years ago now, November 1964, is a question for you. What did Stan Jones do in West Brom High Street?
Opened a calf.
Yes, he opened his calf. Did you remember?
The Paramount.
Ever go into
Oh,
the,
right.
yeah. Did you ever go in there?
That is where that's Paramount Calf was where my journalistic experience began,
Oh, yeah.
because I was working at Kendrick and Jefferson. This is all in my book, by the way, when it comes out. I was working at Kendrick and Jefferson.
Hang on. Bzzz. Book alert, number 1.
We'd have to do a book signing down our new shop.
I will do.
How about that? And Graham. Just thinking there.
And I was playing for the K&J second team, and we used to meet to go train on a Thursday at Spring Road at Shaftesbury Avenue, not Shaftesbury Avenue, Salisbury Avenue, something like that. And because it was a waste of time me going home and then coming back again, I used to meet with Billy Brooks, who was an ex-Albion player who happened to be the social club manager at the K&J's. And he played for K&J's team in the Birmingham Works League when they had about 27 divisions. And we were in the Paramount Calf and having a chat, and he said to me, "You know, do you plan staying at K&J's for the rest of your life?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What did you want to do when you left school?" And I said, "I wanted to be a journalist." And he said, "Well, what stopped you?" And I said, "Well, I went to a secondary modern, so we'd aimed the GCEs. So I went to college, got the GCEs I needed." I said, "But, you know, it's difficult to get in." And he said, "Well, I know the chief reporter at Midland Chronicle, Ken Baggett. Do you want to shall I have a chat with him?" And I said, "Yes, please." From that chat,
Bob's your uncle.
Oh, well, excellent.
So that's why I remember the Paramount, and that's why I remember Stan.
Yeah.
He always used to wear a white coat in there, you know, and he served, you know, and he was quite happy, you know. And
How long did he keep that shop?
well, he'd still got it when I was at the Chronicle, and I don't know what happened when I went to the Walsall Observer. Obviously, I didn't go back in again. He kept it a few years.
I used to play golf.
It was, do you know West Bromwich, Mike?
I was
Yeah, well,
born. I was
yeah.
born in West Brom,
Oh,
so I should.
well,
know.
you know where K&J's was.
Yeah,
If you're walking from K&J's away from Carter's Green,
yeah.
there was New Street and
I don't remember.
and St
that.
Michael's Street. Well, there was a pub on the corner.
I was a bit young for pubs in those
Was you?
days, though, Bob.
There was a pub on the corner, and the Paramount Calf was just next door to the pub.
Now, I've got used to going in pubs again since I've got to know Norman.
Yeah, there's the photographs on Facebook. They're always in a pub. You and Keith ought to get together, I tell you. Keith he has a board meeting. He'll go, we'll meet on the so-and-so, so-and-so.
Exactly.
Right.
There's another shopkeeper I've got to talk about on this show. His name is Brian Warrington. And Brian used to run the butchers in West Bromwich, and he used to supply all the players. And he moved home and he changed job eventually. He sold his butchers and he ended up working for one of the big supermarkets as a buyer. But I'll never forget, I was at Worcester Golf Club playing golf and Brian was there, and I took Graham Williams and Brendan along for a day's golf as my guest. And Brian Warrington saw them and recognised them immediately. And he ran over and he said, courtesy of the course to those two gentlemen, which I thought was very nice of him to do. And we had a lovely day. But Brian was the butcher in the high street who looked after all the players.
Wow.
So
Excellent. Yeah, November 1964 then when that cafe opened, and was also that month Albion were beaten 2-0 by Chelsea, and the Argus match report said, guess if you can work out who I'm talking about, Albion's hero 11 months after he was playing school soccer. He gave his seniors a few lessons. He was active and compact in the Albion on his debut.
he's at Hartford.
Around that time, it was Graham Lovett.
Okay.
Yeah. Lusselli, of course, was involved in a couple of car crashes later in his career, wasn't he? But he managed to pull through, didn't he? Fantastic.
He was.
Billy might not remember. I wonder if he does. This
Well, he is getting on a bit.
When he and I were about 14 or 15, we went to a sort of a holiday camp type arrangement for footballers who were...
Ribbersford.
Yes, it was Ribsford. And on the last day of that outing, West Bromwich Albion's youth team came along to play against us, and that team included Asa Hartford.
I think that was the first time he come down when
And it included...
Bobby
Alan,
Hope.
I'm not sure Bobby was there, but Alan Merrick was.
Yeah.
And it might have been Robbo as well. I can't remember all of them. But yeah, it was quite something for us to see those lads. And when you watched them play, you realised quite how big a gap there was between professionals and non-professionals. We couldn't catch these lads. They ran like Billy-O, and they were fit as fiddles. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was a great day. That was.
Yeah. Still in this same month, in November 1964, and Graham Williams was writing a column for the Sports Argus then, that's the Albion captain, and he said Clive Clark has a tremendous admiration for a certain player, so much so that he's bought a pet poodle for his wife this week and named it Pele. It says he promptly bit Clive on the nose. So that's an interesting one.
Just to follow up from that, John Homer, they had a cat. Him and his wife had a cat, and they called it Zoltan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it speak Hungarian?
All right, let's move on. And 50 years ago now, November 1974, bringing us a bit more up to date.
Blimey.
We mentioned Graham Williams just, but it was the first time he'd ever played in the first round of the FA Cup.
Ooh.
So who was he playing for?
Real?
Torquay?
Not real. Ooh, close to Torquay.
Plymouth?
Somewhere on the south coast that he moved to after the Albion. His first Weymouth. Yes,
Okay,
down at Weymouth. Yeah, and they beat Peterborough in the League Cup. And talking of books, as Judy was earlier, book alert. Right, you may have heard.
Another signing in the shop down at Merrill.
You may have heard that there's a new book coming out, hopefully before Christmas, because I've just about finished writing it, called The Skipper, all about Graham Williams, because it's 70 years this year since he first joined the Albion.
Wow.
So I've spent a considerable amount of time alongside Dean Walton, Mark Whitehouse and Dave Ball compiling this book, which Curtis Sport are going to produce for us and publish for us. And as I speak, they're typing furiously away and getting it all typeset. So you can order it in advance if you so wish on the Curtis Sport websites. So look out for that. It's called Salute the Skipper. And what's interesting about it is that I found out so much amazing stuff, not just about the Albion, but I think his post-Albion career is just absolutely fantastic. There's his stories of he managed and coached and in the Middle East, in particular, all over Africa as well, and all the other trips that is going on, and the stories of camels having their throats slit and being forced to watch hangings in Kuwait, and which doctors.
It's an easy read.
Which doctors in Africa, and that was just on the Monday. So all those stories are explored in great graphic detail in the book, which should be out for Christmas, and the book is called
The Skipper.
The Skipper. Well done, well done.
That's a point.
That's an end of plug for the book. But the book is called Salute the Skipper, and it's available now on CurtisSport.com. Right, let's move on. 20 years ago now, bringing it a little bit more up to date. November 2004. Rob Earnshaw, remember him? He scored his first goal following his move from Cardiff City on that day. Rob Earnshaw, of course, played for Wales a fair bit as well.
Was it Charlton?
Against Charlton. No, he scored the hat-trick, didn't he, against Charlton? But his first game, I think it was against Southampton, I think. Yeah, who had signed, it was 2-2 against Southampton.
I don't think the Albion fans had ever seen a somersault before either.
No. Yeah, Alton Gearwood also, after that, sort of did it. But Rob Earnshaw was great. Like you say, it was that fantastic hat-trick that he got. Lots of people remember him. But Frank Burrows was the Albion manager that day when he made his debut.
Really? Centre half for Swindon Town when I played, Frank Burrows.
Was he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Did he come with Alan Buckley? Frank Burrows?
I think he probably did, and he got the Grimsby connection.
Yeah.
He was just there for a short time after Megson had gone, and then, of course, Brian Robson took over, and that led, of course, to the Great Escape, didn't it?
Yeah.
You must have been at the Albion at that time, were you?
I had moved on by the time the Great Escape happened, but I was there that day, it was amazing to watch the reaction of the Portsmouth fans when we sent Southampton down.
Of course, and lots of Southampton fans were wearing Albion tops that day, weren't they? Yeah, it was the most sensational day. Were you there for that?
No, I wasn't there because...
right, hang on. Can we be judges here to see if he's got a good excuse or not? So you can be the judge of this, Billy.
Okay.
I wasn't there at Albion's big game because
I was having a meal with the rest of the family because it was my sister-in-law's wedding anniversary.
He's made that up.
And plus the fact that I've had to pay to go in.
That's more like it.
That's
more like
it. Say no more. Say no more.
I remember coming back from the restaurant in can't remember where it was now. Hagley. We were coming back from there, and as we approached the Black Country, you're coming from the affluent Worcestershire countryside into the Black Country, and all you could see was blue and white stripes, and people dancing in the street. And I've still got on, fortunately, ITV, on this ITV4 thing they do sometimes. They do the old football games like the big match.
Yeah.
Well, the BBC produced the Great Escape video. Well, not video, a programme about that last day of the season. Unfortunately, I put it on record, and I've got it. So now and again, I'll go back to that because it's an amazing day.
I'm never sure which is the most memorable day like that I can remember from watching West Brom. There's 4 or 5 candidates. There's the game away at Oldham,
76,
which was an amazing day. There was the semi-final second leg against Swansea where the roof nearly came off the stadium. There was the Crystal Palace match when we went up. There was the Great Escape. They were all incredible days. And I'm absolutely not sure which one is the most memorable for me in all of those.
I mean, there's also the 5-5 with Man United.
Well, I was at the 5-3.
The 78 one,
I actually think the biggest one for me was Oldham away. It was the first time for a little while that anything like that had happened. And you got half of the Black Country drove up the M6 that day. It was astonishing. Every car had green and yellow and blue and white in the window. Amazing day.
That was the time Albion nearly didn't get there.
What, in the coach?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, M6. They come. We'd stopped at Lim for a meal, and normally when they played away, if Albion played, because I was lucky enough to travel with them, so if Albion were away and it was an overnighter, what they would do on a Saturday morning, Dave Matthews and the coach driver would drive into the ground, and they'd take all the kit with them, so it was already there. But obviously, you don't stay overnight going to Oldham. It was up to Lim, to the restaurant there, have a meal, and then straight back on the coach. And which we did, and they were giving ourselves plenty of time, so there's going to be no problem. We got plenty of time. And we hit the M62, and you could see the traffic building up. And then we got to the Oldham turn-off, and there must have been about like a 3-mile traffic jam to get off the thing. And it reached the point where Dave Matthews was ready to get out of the coach, get all the kit, so the players could change on the coach.
Gosh.
Because we were getting that close.
Blimey.
And then Alan Everest said to Derek, the coach driver, go up the hard shoulder. He said, I can't, Mr. Everest, it's against the law. And he said, go up the hard shoulder. So he pulled the coach out and went straight up the hard shoulder to be met by a police superintendent at the top, who started reading the riot act to him. And Alan Everest came out with something like, if you don't let us go, the match will be called off, and you've got to explain to all these people why they've got to go home.
Mm.
Yeah, that would have...
And then he realised the problem they were in, and the next thing we know, we got 2 motorcycle outriders.
That day, I remember a buddy and I travelled up there without a ticket. We were going to buy tickets when we got there, which in those days you could. Except that by the time we got to the ticket window, there was virtually nothing left. And we were offered 2 restricted view tickets. And we thought, well, that can't be that bad. We'll have them. So we bought these 2 restricted view tickets. And then we went and sat down where they were. And there was a side to the stand which blocked out everything in the one penalty area. So you couldn't see half of the pitch. And we thought, we can't have this. So, of course, we sort of sidled out of there and ended up standing in with the home fans. And there were more Albion fans in there than there were home fans. It was an amazing day.
I mean, the thing as well is that they ran out of programmes.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted, a lot of Albion fans wanted that programme. And actually, Oldham reproduced their programme, reprinted it, because of all the messages they were getting from Albion supporters who couldn't get a programme, asking if they got any.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
And Oldham reprinted it.
Brilliant. Right, so that's our look then at things that have been happening in this month in history. So let's go back in history with you then, Mike. Early doors, as I say. How did you become an Albion supporter, and tell us about your schoolboy football and the likes?
I think I probably first kicked a ball at junior school when I would have been about 7 or 8 years old. And in those days, there was a school team which was nearly all made up of the kids from the top year because they were bigger.
Give us a school check, name check.
Causeway Green Junior School it was.
Green.
And
that's where my wife went.
The best player by a long, long way in our year was none other than Billy Spakemon. And he scored so many goals it wasn't true.
What happened to him?
But the other thing that was unusual was that he got picked for the school team when we were in our second year, and he was playing alongside fourth year kids who were about 3 times bigger than him. But he could play, and that's what happened. So early football would have been there, and in our top year, in the 4th year at that school, I think we won every match by about 6 or 7, and we had a school teacher who always used to say, well, that was a very good victory, lads, but don't count on it always being that easy. You won't have all the games that easy. And I think every game came along, and every game we won 6 or 7-0, and Billy scored 3 or 4 goals, and it was a happy time.
Just say, I've never known Billy go so red in all my life. It's almost embarrassed, but not quite.
Well, we did the Cup and League double.
We did,
and it was a very happy year. So, and it was during that time that I started watching at West Brom, courtesy of David Baker, and we talked about that.
Yeah.
But I used to go intermittently. I didn't go all the time. My dad didn't want to go particularly, so I'd go with David and his dad when they went. And then later on, as I got a bit older, went to university and met a lad there who was a big Baggies fan, and we decided we'd go along to a game, and we enjoyed it, and we thought, blow this, we'll get season tickets, and that was 1971. So my first season ticket was Don Howe's managerial career.
Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting of football.
It was a bit of a challenge, but then, of course, Johnny Giles turned up and changed all that, and we had a fantastic year with him. And then it got awfully sad, of course, when he didn't stay. And that was the beginning, really. And I carried on watching regularly until 2002 as a fan, and then started working for the club in 2002 for 2.5 years, when Jeremy Peace was chairman.
We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But going back to the 70s then, who were your favourite players around that time?
Willie Johnston. Jeff was still playing, but it was towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
Tony Brown was there. And you'd got the likes of Brian Robson coming through. And then, of course, when Cunningham and Regis arrived in the 70s, and Brendan, we had one hell of a team. And we were handing out pastings right, left and centre to everybody we played. And, of course, we should have won the league when the snow stopped us.
Yes.
And that was very sad. Should have won that league. But a great team to watch. Derek Statham was a joy to watch. Everywhere in that team, you'd got stars. They were fabulous.
What's your feelings about managers around that time? How does Ron Atkinson fit in with all-time greats, do you think, manager-wise?
I was never a particular fan of Ron, if I'm honest. I thought he got a little bit lucky in inheriting a team that had been built before
Giles,
he. And we bought David Mills, which didn't work out well, and I thought we'd wasted a lot of money on David. Clearly Ron knew what he was doing, but then when he took Brian Robson with him and Remy with him to Manchester, I never forgave him for that.
I understand what you mean, but nonetheless, it didn't go well with Albion fans, did it?
No, and we were going to lose Brian sooner or later because he was so good. But we all just hoped he might have stayed a bit longer because we would have won things.
Yeah. Okay, right, now then. This is the big moment. The big moment we've all been waiting for. It's the Quiz of the Week. It's not from Norwich, but we've got the knowledge. Right, are you ready then, Billy?
I am, yeah.
Have you got your quill sharpened?
I have got my quill sharpened.
Right, you can be the adjudicator. That means the judge. That means
okay.
Billy, yeah, so, yep.
Yeah, you're filling the scores, Bill.
You fiddle the scores.
I'm glad you explained that.
Right, shout out the answers. So, number 1. This month in 1986, Albion beat Birmingham 3-2. Bobby Williamson scored 2. Who scored the other Albion goal? He was the top scorer that season in 1986 and went on to become a well-known pundit on the
Don
BBC.
Goodman.
Don.
No.
Really?
And the other one, at that time slightly less well-known,
Kevin
been on
Kilburn.
Match of the Day for a while, with a very strange voice, some people would say. Garth Crooks.
Yeah.
Crooks.
Yeah.
Mike? Yeah,
Mike
just.
takes the lead. Right, number
There's a lot
2.
of prompts there. Shall we just give off for that?
Half mark then.
Okay.
November 1966, Bobby Hope scored Albion's first goal in Europe. Where?
Oh, wow.
Who did we play?
Wow.
DOS.
Sophia.
No.
Don't know.
Dutch side.
Ajax. No.
No, Right, 5 marks to me because I don't know this one. Utrecht.
Alkmaar.
Utrecht.
Oh, no, points there. Go on.
Right, number 3, November 56. Who played his 600th game for the Albion in all competitions?
Robson.
56.
Bobby Robson.
No.
Joe Kennedy.
No, Len
Millard.
Len Millard.
Half a point because you had to prompt again.
Number 4 in November 76. Who broke Albion's league appearance record with his 455th appearance? Tony Brown.
Ooh,
Correct.
confident there.
Yeah.
Number 5, beating whose record?
Pennington.
Jesse Pennington.
Ooh.
Correct.
Good one.
In November missed the Euro, about 98, I think, possibly earlier. Who got a hat-trick as we beat Preston 3-1. Lee Hughes got the hat-trick, but who was sent off for Preston, who later became the Albion manager?
Manager.
Megson? No.
You should know this,
Talbot.
Mike. Think of Oxford, Mike.
Oh, Michael Appleton.
Michael Appleton, correct.
I wouldn't have got that.
Half a point.
Yeah, well, full mark for that. November 76.
Full mark? Okay.
Who made
He's being generous.
Who made his Albion debut following a transfer from Coventry, November 76?
David Cross.
David Cross, correct. Number 8.
Come on, Bob.
I'm struggling here, Bill.
In November 68, who did Albion beat in Romania?
Bucharest.
Stoya Bucharest.
Bucharest, Bob.
Bucharest.
Yeah.
Dynamo Bucharest.
Dynamo
Bucharest.
Okay.
Number 9, in November of which year did Bobby Robson make his England debut against France?
58.
Ooh, close.
57.
57 it is. Right, what's the scores, Bill?
It's
Annihilation.
4.5 to 2.5 at the moment.
Ooh,
so
Not very good, really.
Could be a bonus point for Bob if he gets this one.
Okay, I think there could be 2 points on this
2
one.
points on this one.
So, around this time in 1963, which defender scored 6 in a Youth Cup win against Northampton Town and went on to replace Graham Williams in the first team?
Ray Wilson.
Ray Wilson.
2
Oof.
points.
Which
It's a tie break. How does that happen every week?
Wow. Which,
Okay.
this is it then. This is tense.
What you should do is, like Mastermind, you should send one out. I'm only going to ask this question once. Build the tension up.
Here we go.
Okay, here we go.
This is really tense. Dun, 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 dun.
Du-du-du-du.
Which Albion player got an England cap in November 2008 when he came on as a substitute against Germany in Berlin, and is still playing today in the reserves in Manchester?
I know who it is, and I can't think of his name.
Ooh, that's a bit of a drawback, that.
Yeah.
Bit of a drawback. Oof. Come
It's,
on.
No.
Ooh.
When you say his
Go
name,
on.
I'll tell you who it is.
Centre half.
No.
No.
Is it in defence of
Like
sorts?
a covering midfield player.
His first,
Does his
Johnny
first name begin
Evans.
with J?
his first
Johnny
no,
Evans.
No, you're thinking of
It was Johnny
Jake
Evans I
Livermore,
thought
aren't you?
of.
Not
Oh,
him.
yeah.
No. Goalkeeper.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ben Foster.
Oh, this is going. No!
we've
No,
only
no,
got
no.
22
No.
minutes left.
Right, hang on. This was going really well. I'm going to declare and tell you the answer is Scott Carson.
Yeah.
Scott
thank
Carson, and
Which
it's a tie.
So it's a tie. It's,
It's
the
a
first
tie. First
ever.
tie
Well
ever.
done, Bob. First tie
Well done,
ever.
Mike.
Should have got that because I was told that he doesn't. Does he play for the third team now?
It does indeed.
And he's on about 100 grand playing
Yeah.
in the third team.
And hardly ever plays,
And hardly ever
even
plays.
in the reserves.
And
yeah.
he's won a Champions League medal every time Manchester City have done it.
Yeah.
Because he's on the bench.
Okay. Now then, we mentioned earlier Crossroads, didn't we? And it's 60 years this month since the very first Crossroads started. And I put something out on Facebook and WhatsApp the other day about trying to get a Crossroads-related 11 for the Albion. And that's things like Sandy Richardson and his brother Kieran and WG. Marilyn Hope.
We have to
of
put up
course,
with
and
this
his
every
son,
month.
Bobby Hope. And, of course, who was in charge of the hotel,
Noel Gordon.
No.
whose character
Gordon
was...
Nisbet.
Go,
You got it, yeah. Who's... What was the character?
Meg
Megson.
Megson.
Megson was the manager. And we had Hugh Mortimer, of course, was in Crossroads with his brother Dennis. And so I've come up with the help of a few other people as well who corresponded with us, Dave House and John Eden in particular. So a 4-4-2 formation. In goal, there was Dick Jarvis, of course, the guy. So Dick Shepherd. In defence, as you said correctly, Noel Gordon Nisbet, if you remember. Then there was Sandy, of course, in Crossroads. So we had Sandy McNabb, didn't we? He was a wartime guy. Martin Bennett was always known as Benny, wasn't he, to his mate? So great Benny. And then we had Stan Harvey Jones, of course, in there. Midfield, we've got the Richardsons. So there's Kieran Richardson and W.G. Richardson. Then Peter Hope was the vicar. in Crossroads, and of course his son
Bobby.
Hope. Then there was Adam Chance, was one of the big characters, wasn't he? And his son was Richard Sneakers, who was known as Richard One Chance Adams Sneakers. And the big chef in Crossroads was Mr. Booth, whose first name was Bernard. So, of course, we've got Bernard McNally, who stirred things up in midfield. And then a couple of forwards. Who played Mr. Hunter? The well-known actor Ronald Allen.
Ronnie.
You've got Ronnie Allen himself. And then Sue Nichols. Remember Sue Nichols? She had that record as well, didn't you? Where will you be when I need you?
Yeah, that's all right, Norman. Not too much, please.
On that one, yeah. Well, she had a son called Johnny Nichols, of course. As substitutes, there was Doris, Luke, she was. So we've got Luke Moore, of course. Wilf Harvey was in it. Wilf Harvey Carter. And Stan Harvey we mentioned, and his other son, Stan Harvey Barnes. And the manager, of course, we've mentioned Mego. But wait for it. Who was the chef? We haven't mentioned. Who's the big chef in Crossroads?
No idea.
Carlos, of course, wasn't it? Carlos the Corberan. Right, so you can't say I didn't make a meal of things on that.
How long does it take you to dream those up, Norman?
Let's say it's obvious that there's a lot of thought that gone into it. Let's leave it at that, shall we? Right, let's talk a bit more about yourself then, Mike. So, how come you ended up down at Ipswich then? And obviously we're very successful at Ipswich, so congratulations on that.
That was a fair bit of luck, to be honest. Mr. Ashton and I, for a long time, thought about trying to find a backer and buy a club. But finding a backer is easier said than done. And it took a long time. But eventually we found some American backers who wanted to buy a British football club. And they said to us, look, why don't we go and buy Newcastle? And we said, that's maybe not a great idea. At the time, it was before Newcastle had been invested in by the Middle Eastern group. It was when the chap who run the sports franchise owned them. And we said, buying Newcastle is risky because if they get relegated, you lose half your money straight away. You'd be better off trying to find a club that's fallen on hard times, is potentially a big club that you might buy for a good price and build back up again, and then you'll make some money along the way. And they said, fine, that's a really good idea. Who do you recommend? And we gave them a list of teams, one of which was West Brom. And they then said, fine, go and see what the deals are that we might be able to do. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I got the task of phoning around best part of a dozen clubs to see whether they were for sale and what the price might be and whether that could work. And a lot of them just weren't interested in selling. We didn't get a call back from a number of them.
It must be a bit strange if you just pick up the phone and say, hello,
well, I
can
knew
we buy
some
your
of
club,
them,
please?
I knew some of them from before when I'd worked at West Brom, but not by no means all of them. And in the case of a couple of clubs, they just didn't want to answer the phone at all. And to be fair, clubs do get an awful lot of time wasters phoning up saying, will you sell me the club? So you understand that.
You did say West Brom were on the list.
They were, but we couldn't agree a price range. The owner wanted more than we thought it was worth. So it didn't really go very far.
So you did get...
We never engaged with West Brom, really. There was one phone call, I think, in which we said, are you interested in doing a deal? And they said, yes, our price is X. And we said, okay, nice knowing you. And that was as far as it went. But when we spoke to Ipswich, their owner was ready to deal. He'd owned the club for 14 years, and I think he'd reached the point where he felt he'd done as much as he could. And if he could find a buyer who would invest in it and take it forward, then he was willing to talk. It then took 1.5 years to close that deal. It was very complicated on a number of fronts. And eventually we got to the point where everyone was agreed, the price was agreed, the timing was agreed, the shareholdings were agreed, and it closed. And that was in April 2001. So working back, we must have started talking with the owner early in 2021. I should have said it closed. Must have been 2020 when we first started talking to them. And then 3.5 years later, lo and behold, we find ourselves in the Premier League, well ahead of when we thought we were going to get there. We always targeted that, but we thought realistically it was a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year task, because at the beginning we were in League One, third tier, and we weren't doing very well in that tier. We'd got aspirations to rebuild it, but it just took far less time than we anticipated. And then, having done that job, we got to the summer of last year, and Muggins here was finding that driving 40,000 miles a year was a bit much for a 72-year-old. So I had a quiet word with the investors and said, look, fellas, I think it's probably time I retired. We've got succession in the business. There's someone who can step into this task right now. And I'd quite like to retire. And they were very good about that and said, if that's what you'd like to do, fine. We're grateful you did the deal for us, but if you want to retire, that's fine.
It seems strange to me, though, that you spent so many years not getting paid, presumably, on this voluntary as well, getting yourself up into the Championship, getting yourself as chairman, and then obviously achieving that success and then walking away from it straight away.
No, it's not really, if you think about it. I was finding it very tiring, and I knew I wanted to retire. The question was when. And I had two choices, really. I either retired in July last year, which was right at the peak. We were in the Premier League. Or if I stayed and maybe did 1 year in the Premier League, there'd got to be a pretty good chance we'd go down again, because a lot of clubs do that. It's difficult to make that transition. And if we went down again, I would then feel obligated to stay for another couple of years to get them back up, by which time I'm knocking on 75. And I really didn't want to face that.
So you went out at the top, really?
I went at the top. And in fact, if you calculate the performance of any chairman, anytime, anywhere, I've probably got the best win ratio of all of them. In the 2 years we got those successive promotions, we were sort of 96 points, which it takes a bit of doing. So it was a wonderful ride. Kieran McKenna is a very gifted gentleman. Lots of time for him, looking back, I'm really pleased with the timing. It worked out well.
When you talk about sort of Ipswich and the success you had there, how would you reflect back on your time at the Albion, Mike?
I learned a lot. I didn't get on particularly well with Jeremy. I found him difficult to deal with. To begin with, it was okay, but he had some styles of negotiation that I found really difficult. I learned an awful lot about the industry in those few years. What I probably didn't appreciate at the beginning was quite how tough it is to become established in the Premier League. And if you remember back to those years, we yo-yoed for 2 or 3 or maybe 4 seasons before we managed to establish ourselves. And I think in those early years we put a model together in the club which served it very well and gave it some stability. A lot of clubs rely entirely on the manager for the backroom team. So when the manager moves on, either because he's done a great job and gets recruited to a bigger club, or because he's done badly and he gets fired, whichever of those happens, pretty much the entire backroom team goes with him. And you have to start absolutely again from scratch to try and build a team, a squad, an infrastructure that's going to enable you to succeed. Whereas the model we created at West Brom changed that with the likes of Dan Ashworth, where we were able to have some repeatability and sustainability even if the manager left. We kept the same scouting group, we kept the same physio group, we kept the same sports science group, etc. And that meant you didn't have a complete change around. You got backroom teams who knew about the players, knew about the club, understood the culture, understood where we were strong and weak, and therefore the new manager coming in had a leg up the ladder. He didn't have to start from the complete beginning every time. And that was unusual. There weren't many clubs doing that back in the early 2000s. A lot of people try and do it now. So I think we probably put some things in place that were revolutionary and new and served the club very well.
Yeah, good stuff there, I think. Yeah, it's really interesting. That we've only got a couple of minutes left, I think, haven't we? So
Yeah, a couple of minutes.
just your thoughts on the Albion then, looking forward with the Albion, and I know you've not wanted to comment, obviously, about the takeover and the new chairman when you were still a chairman at Ipswich, but now it's sort of free-man, as it were. What are your thoughts on the takeover?
The big question is the resource they bring to the table. I don't know what that is. I don't know how wealthy they are, but that's important. If you think back to Ipswich's purchases, it was a pension fund worth $20-odd billion.
It was a fire service in America or something,
It's the pension fund of the police and fire services in Arizona. And when you've got a fund of that size, then if you're going to pay a few tens of millions for a club, frankly, if it all goes wrong, it doesn't matter. They'd wipe it off as small change. But if you're only worth 100 million and you want to spend 50 million on a club, that's a very big deal. And you'd think very carefully about doing that. You'd also think very carefully about how much you'd invest post-deal. Whereas if you've got 22 billion behind you and you want to invest 10 million, it's almost, again, pocket money. So that's a key question, and I don't know the answer to it. But for me, looking at the position of the team and the club right now, they've as good a chance as anyone's this year. I'd be very disappointed if they weren't in the top six.
Wow, that's a good positive way to end it. Now you've retired again. It remains to be seen how long it is before you're back doing something else. So I'm not convinced you've retired yet. But
Folks off the Cape will never retire. Do they?
But even if you are wearing a claret jumper, it looks very Villa style. But we still welcomed you today. It's gone down really well. I think you enjoyed it, Bob.
Yes,
yeah,
very much so.
Great.
I mean, it's great to see the other side of it. I mean, you know, sort of. You see it from the supporters' point of view, you see it from the players' point of view, but when you got somebody like Mike who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt, at the backroom part of it, and the negotiations part of it, I mean, that was really interesting what he was just saying.
Yeah, and good for you as well, Billy, to reminisce.
Yes, very good.
Indeed. So all it remains for me to say is thanks very much for being guests today, and thank you for listening to the viewers. Goodbye.
To the viewers.
This is the Throstle Club with Norman Bartlam and Bob Downing.
Black Country Xtra. Live from the Black Country, online, on your mobile.